and I've actually won like 4 tournaments that summer, which was
Wow.
kind of insane. Yeah, it was like the $400 at the win for like 30K, followed by like a $600 at the Venetian for like 40K, 1K at the Venetian for like 100K, and then the tag team event for WSOP bracelet with two of my good friends, which was also very, very cool, very nice. And I even had like the biggest final table of my life back then, at least until that moment. It was like a 1.6K event at the win, with like 500K for first. And I got I got it in like ace jack suited against ace four suited or something and busted ninth. And I remember like this was a big moment in my mental career, because I remember like basically what happens in MTTs, I think, is most people, they run deep, and then they have like, let's say you're like 1 out of 20 in a big tournament, and then you have like this huge expectation. You're already dreaming of like, there is like 100K, 200K, 1 million up top, doesn't matter. And you have that amount in your mind already. You're thinking about it. Some, it may affect their games, some it doesn't. But I think as long as you have that expectation, and then realistically you can just bust 2 hours after that, or like 3 hands later, um, that can be really, really painful. And I remember like that final table, even though it was followed by basically me going to Vegas and 10xing my bankroll or something during that trip, I was so disappointed. Like I remember I basically became sick. It was like the last day of my Vegas trip, and I had to like pack and do all those kinds of arrangements before my flight. And I remember I was just lying sick in bed, just couldn't get up. And maybe I was just getting the flu, but I think it had also something to do with just being really, really disappointment. Like even though it was like still a great result, I think it was like 50K from a 1.6K tournament. But at the moment, you just feel like somebody crushed your soul. I don't know. Um, so this was a very, very big experience for me, because ever since I've been really, really careful with having expectations. I think ever since basically it's never happened. Like I've had so many deep runs. Like I remember being like 1 out of 10 in a big live MTT with like 40% of chips and busting ninth, and not even like punting, just getting coolered. And I was so okay with it. Like I was obviously disappointed, but like now I just realized these things happen, and it's just a part of the experience, and there is not much you can do about it. And also going back to what I said before, I think MTT guys, they need to, they need to acknowledge the pain. Like there is so much pain to it. So let's say you sit down and you play a cash game, and let's say a cash game guy is having a downswing, losing like 30 binds, 50 binds, I don't know. It can be pretty painful. I'm not saying you're not going to have rough moments, but if you're an MTT guy and you're losing 500 binds, or like you're losing for like 1 or 2 years, this is very painful. And this is one of the reasons why I left MTTs. So basically what happened is, uh, back then I was thinking I want to play mostly live, because I felt like live MTTs are so good, and I liked like traveling to many stops, um, and I was doing really well. Basically, I after that Vegas trip, I went to Cyprus. There is a cool place called Merit, and I won the main event basically back to back, like 2 trips in a row for like 160, 180K each, which is again like kind of an insane run. Um, and yeah, basically then COVID happens and no more live stops. So I was kind of not sure what to do, but then online poker boomed. So I was again playing online MTTs and was doing okay. I think I had a solid year at COVID, but then I realized like this is not working. Like I don't enjoy the online streets as much anymore, uh, especially when it means, I mean, the online MTT streets, especially when it means going to sleep. Like with my Israeli time zone, it means like you have to go to sleep at like 5, 6, 7, 8 a.m. every day if you want to grind it. And for me, it was not sustainable because it basically would fuck my life. Um, I was trying to get like a routine going of like just leaving like, I'm not saying like waking up 6 a.m., but at least, waking up like 11 a.m. or like 12, something like that, and being able to have a social life, being able to, I don't know, doing some stuff other than studying and playing. And it was very hard. So I was thinking, maybe I could try something else. Maybe I can try to get into cash games. And then a mutual friend connected me to Uri Peleg, which you've already talked to. And basically, him and a great group of coaches shifted my game from playing. I wasn't really a beginner because I started playing like I already had a lot of money and experience, and I basically started playing like 1K when I moved to cash games like 510. And I was doing already pretty well playing those games. And then what happens is my game just shifted really quickly from playing those games to like playing, like taking a shot at 5K on GG. And then having taken a shot at 5K and seeing that things are going well for 1, 2, 3 months, I said, okay, I mean, usually what happens in high stakes is there is a big gap between the mid stakes to high stakes. So if you play 5, 10 or 10, 20, it's really hard to go up to play 5K, because what happens is first of all, there is a lot less action in 25-50 compared to like 5-10. And second, the games are much tougher. Also, because there is a lot less action, then people play fewer tables. They are much more focused. Whereas if you play 5-10 people, maybe they play, especially on GG, they could play like 10 to 15 tables or something to grind the rakeback stuff or whatever. And I think it's much tougher to play the higher games. And then this gap is really hard to go through. And for me, I don't know, it kind of, I've always been on the side of, like I said, degen, but yeah, like at that point, I'm already taking like smart shot taking, I would say, because I had a lot of money from MTTs. I just wasn't sure that I have the skill that is required. But once I figure out that I do, then basically when you play the high stakes, then often 25-50 and 50-100, it's almost the same lineup. So then I started playing 50-100, and I basically saw that my results were even better because it's the same lineup, but the rake is lower. And then there would be like a 100-200 game. So whenever there was a really good spot, I started playing those games. And then I realized that, again, like the results just get better because often it's like a very similar lineup, but it's much lower rake. And I guess 100-200 is exactly the cutoff point where the games start to become much tougher, because some of the guys who play 5K regularly don't want to play. But people who, like the very top guys, they do want to play. So like if they see there is some 20K or 40K action going on regularly, they would just show up. They would start showing up every day, which doesn't always happen. So yeah, and then it peaked at it basically, I've had like a really good year, and it peaked with like the Imagine King games at the end of the 2021. Basically, if yeah, I'll just say it's like some kind of Chinese guy who showed up, and he started playing 25-50, like 3 tables, and then he moved up to 50-100, and then 100-200, 200-400. I think he even played like 1 or 2 sessions of higher than that, but most of the games were like 20K and 40K. And when it was 40K, it was basically really tough lineups. Basically, the same guys almost show up every day. You could see like Kevin, Linus, Ignacio, Dudy, yeah, like Davy Jones, Darrell, like literally all of the very top guys. They would just show up every day. Like Marcus Lykonen, there would be like yeah, there would be like 6 table with almost the same lineup. And then it was very nice because even though we had this rack at the table, it was still very hard because the rake is still it's already much lower, but it's still, if you compare it to different sides, it was still pretty high. And you're playing like literally the best players in the world. So I think I also ran pretty hot during that like 1-2 months, but I think I was probably at the top of my game back then, just being really sharp, studying and being very consistent. And I think I had like a really good routine during that times. So yeah, I was super happy to be able to do that.